How's it going, everybody? Ben from basesetmew here, and welcome back to the channel. In this video I want to show you my graded card collection. I'm actually using one of these Ultra Pro, I think Pelican cases, I think they're called, because I do have a lot of graded cards that you can see right here. We're gonna go through each one of them, and as the thumbnail suggests, there's a story behind every single one. I will attempt to not talk as much about every single card, because I could be here for hours. But before we do that though, before I actually got this Pelican case, I actually used to use this binder right here. This is just a normal D-ring binder from Ultra Pro as well, and it uses like these graded card holders, also from Ultra Pro, but as you can see, it's very limited in space, and just the sheer amount of cards that I have would mean that I would need multiple of these binders, and that's why I switched to this Pelican case right here. But anyways, let's move on with the cards. Let me get all of them on the table, I suppose. Alright, and I've set everything up, so I've got them all right in front of me on the table. So I guess I'll just start grabbing some cards, and we're gonna start it off with my Pokemon part of the collection. That might sound weird, but actually I think 60% or something like that of my graded card collection are actually full art trainers. So I thought I'd split this video into like two categories. The first one being like actual graded cards of Pokemon, and then the second category during the later half of the video is going to be full art trainers. But without further ado, let's just start it off with like the odd ones out, I want to say, because out of the two slabs I want to show you, I only have a single one of. So this is an ARS Glaceon VSTAR, and before I do mention it, a lot of these cards I actually bought in a mail day, but a lot of them are also graded myself. And this one, I think, is from my last mail day that I did. And this is a ARS 10+, basically the best grade you can get with this Japanese grading company. The cases themselves, very reminiscent of BGS because of the sheer size of them, you know, very, very thick cases. What I do really like about them, while they do have a frosted border around them, they are completely see-through, and I do like the label. Apparently the label is actually metal, so that's just super high quality, like it feels super premium. The plastic itself, this is definitely my favorite graded card company out of all of them that I have. I do like the look of CGC Pristine 10s, but this just feels high quality. I just wish they were a little more accessible to grade with, but being based in Japan, I'm pretty sure their grading system is also based on a lottery. So if you want to send in cards to this grading company, you basically have to win the lottery. At least that was the case earlier. I don't know if they changed it, but there we are. And the other odd one out is this Mewtwo EX right here. Now, longtime fans of the channel might recognize this card right here, because this is from Card Market Grading way back when, also like eons old at this point. And I really just sent this card in back in the day just to test their service and everything. I never sold the card just because I thought that was kind of special. It wasn't my first graded card, that is coming up a little bit later, but I still think this is pretty cool. And there we are. Back here you can see Card Market Grading, and that's the only slab I have of Card Market Grading as well. I guess moving it on to the Mew part, we're starting it off with the Mew part of my graded card collection. This one, of course, you have seen in a recent mail day. This is the perfect 10 sleeping Mew right here. Not really much to say about this. I talked about this extensively in the mail day where I actually bought the card. So just as a quick reminder right here, by CCIC, Chinese Grading Company, and it is a perfect 10, not the only perfect 10 of this card in particular, as you're gonna see a little bit later. Right here, this is the one I actually got, or actually graded myself, a pristine 10 Japanese Golden Mew, also in like, I think my last CGC return, because after my last CGC return and everything with the US going on at the moment, I didn't grade anything anymore. Still holding off at this, but getting this one in a pristine 10 looks super cool. It fits the Golden Mew so well, right? I think this is special. This is not the card that I have in my binder. I think you are aware the one that I have in my binder I actually pulled on Christmas Eve. No, this one I got off eBay for a really cheap price at the time. I think I paid like 40 or 50 euros or something like that. And at the time, I think it was going for 80. So not only did I get a really good deal on the card, it actually ended up grading a pristine 10. So that is very, very nice. And here is the other sleeping Mew I mentioned. I also mentioned it in the mail day. This is one of only 2 CGC Perfect 10s I own in my graded card collection. Because ever since they redid their labels, as you can see right here, you know, they don't do Perfect 10s anymore, which I think is a shame. But apparently, according to their statistics, only about like 2% of all cards graded were only a Perfect 10. I'm hoping I remember that number correctly. But there we are, one of only 2. Really special card because it is of course the Mew. And this was among the first 3 cards I ever sent into grading myself. This was when CGC opened their submission office in Munich, and I think I was one of the early adopters because I also got a goodie bag upon returning of the cards, so that was really, really nice. Perfect 10 right here. And I always heard these rumors if you submit a card to CGC, but you don't take subgrades because, you know, subgrades were an option back then. I think they don't do them anymore, which is also a shame. But if you have a Perfect 10, they'll add the subgrades themselves, and this is what they did with this one and with another card a little bit later on. But there we are, the Perfect 10, or CGC Perfect 10 Sleeping Mew. And right here is the first graded card I ever bought. This is the card that started it all, and what a card to start the graded card collection for me, eh? This is the perfect card for me personally. It also still has the old CGC label, and I will never resubmit this, because, well, first of all, it's only a 6.5, so it's not that high of a grade, but I think the blue label fits the blue Mew and the blue card itself very, very perfectly, which is also the reason why I will never resubmit this card. Man, I bought this back in the day for 500 Australian dollars. I actually got it from a seller on eBay. He was based in Australia. So that was traveled halfway across the world to get to me. That's pretty cool, right? Alright, and next up here we have a Shining Mew. This is the English version of this one from Shining Legends. And I think you might see a theme right here. I do really like Mew, but especially Shiny Mew. I think Shiny Mew is super cool, and this is no exception. This is one of the later Shining cards. I know there exist some during the Wizard of the Coast era, and those are pretty cool in their own right. I don't own a single one of those, unfortunately, but I think they're really cool. This one is no exception though, especially since it is a Mew card, and this is super, super cool. I also have a simplified Chinese version of this card in particular, and this one is actually super cool itself because, well, not only, as you can see, the stark difference between the border, obviously, the texture is also much finer on the Mew itself. I don't know if the camera can even pick it up. Like, I can't see the difference on the camera, but in person it's definitely there, and it's night and day in terms of texture. But as I've pointed out, the border, the holographic border, I'm pretty sure that is an exclusive feature to the simplified Chinese version of this one, because I'm pretty sure not even the Japanese version of this card has a holographic border. I'm pretty sure they also only have like their gray borders, like in a similar vein to this one, where only the Mew is holographic. No, for this one it's also the border, which I thought was super cool on this card, which is why I bought it. Moving it on, I also have an English golden Mew right here, this one in a PSA 10. This one is also pretty cool. I think I bought this one on Card Market from a seller in the Netherlands. I bought this way before I even had the Japanese one, the Japanese version. Because if you remember, the Japanese version I have in my binder, I pulled myself on Christmas, as I mentioned previously. So I bought this way, way earlier, and I haven't looked at this card in a really long time, and I don't mean to be rude, but I've kind of forgotten that the texture is way less noticeable on this card in English. So that's kind of funny. Still a really cool card, and I'm really glad I have this one in my collection. And right here, this is the last graded Mew card I have in my collection. This one I actually graded myself. Only managed to get a normal CGC 10. I was hoping for a Gemmin 10, but this one is also from the 25th anniversary, just like the 2 golden Mews. And I thought this was really cool. I do actually have the original print of this card in my binder. I think you've seen that one as well in a first edition from Mirage Forest. So having the reprint in a CGC 10 is still pretty cool in my opinion. And here we have the next set of cards in my graded card collection. Apparently this one is also my most expensive card in my collection. I actually use an app to track my collection, not because of value, because as you know, I don't care about the value unless I actually have to spend the money to buy the card. But apparently this is my most expensive card in my entire collection. I just think that's super strange, especially since this is a modern card. But I think last time I checked, this was around 2,500 euros. And I think it's only climbing because for some reason the traditional Chinese and simplified Chinese Pikachu exclusive promos seem to do pretty well. I think most recent, the ones from the simplified Collect 151 expansions, those are doing exceptionally well. This one is a traditional Chinese, as I mentioned, for the 5th anniversary traditional Chinese Pokemon TCG, and I actually got 2 boxes of that set, and believe it or not, before this card and that set this is from, or the gift box that is from, exploded, you were able to get the box for, I think I spent 200 for both of them, so 100 per box. Yeah, that ship has sailed. This card and the box it came from is insanely expensive. The box itself, I don't mean to push it, because it's expensive as it is, but the box this came from is actually a super cool product, because not only do you get the promo, you also get a Super Electric Breaker booster box, which is also kind of special to me, because as you might know, I pulled the Hydreigon SAR from one of them, so that was really, really nice. Next up, we have a few cards that I actually graded myself. The Latios from Paradise Dracula, this one in pristine 10. I just thought this is super cool. I do have the Latias to match, but that one is sitting in my binder, so Latios is feeling kind of lonely, if that makes sense. Maybe I have to buy the Latias at some point to not make him feel as lonely. I also have the Zoroark from Stellar Miracle. This is actually my favorite artware, or my favorite recent artware out of all of them. Although the Riolu that was recently announced for the Mega Evolution sets, that also looks pretty cool. That might actually move this one to my second favorite artware, or recent artware, I should say. My favorite artware is, of course, the Mew, but this one is super cool. I'm really glad I have this one in a pristine 10. Another card that I also am really glad to have in a pristine 10 is this one. This is just the standard double rare Mewtwo and Mew GX tag team. But this one is illustrated by Mitsuhiro Arita, which is why this is super cool. I do plan to get the alternate art eventually. I just don't know in which language. It's probably not going to be English because, let's be realistic, the English tag team cards have exploded over the past few years, years, whatever. Really expensive, so I might just grab a Japanese or even a Chinese version. Even the Chinese version goes for quite some money at this point, so I might have to buy it sooner rather than later. Next up we have this one right here. This one I also pulled myself from my Shadow Over the Blue Sea opening, where I pulled not only 2 alternate arts, I also pulled not just this rainbow rare, I also pulled the Giratina VSTAR to match. I didn't grade the Giratina because it was a little bit off-centered, decided to go with the Lugia instead, and last time I checked this was actually a Pop 1, I think right now it's a Pop 3, so it's not a 1 of 1 anymore, but then again, Pop 1, it doesn't really matter because this is a card that not many people would grade, so realistic doesn't matter. I just thought that was super cool, that like a super neat fact. But there we are with the Lugia V-Star. And next up right here we have the Rayquaza V from 9 Colors Gathering. This alternate art is actually super special to me as well, because as you might know, the English one of this one is in my binder, and that was the first alternate art I ever pulled upon returning to the hobby. And I started with Evolving Skies when I returned to the hobby, which is kind of strange to think about, right? Evolving Skies, now such an infamous set. But I started with Evolving Skies and was lucky enough to pull, at the time, my chase card from the set, which was this Rayquaza V. Well, the English version, not this one in particular. This one I bought off Card Hobby and then graded myself. Point still stands. The artwork is super cool. Man, that looks super nice. Love that card. Alright, and we're moving it on with this card right here. This is actually really cool because this is an error card, as you can see right here. Misalignment, because if we look at the back, don't know what has happened there. Although, funny story about this one. So I've actually seen a few ones which have the exact same error of this one, and I'm also pretty sure this is like Europe exclusive, if you will, because for some reason these errors only appeared in the European version of the, you know, special premium collection boxes that these cards were featured in. Really, really cool. Also, one thing I wanted to point out, I did actually say, or I assumed, that a grade 9 was the highest you could have for an error, but I'm pretty sure I've recently seen actually a CGC 10 with an error as well, so maybe you can even get a 10 even with an error, which to me doesn't really make sense. How is a card a gem mint if it has an error? But, you know, well, let's not get into that too deep, if that makes sense. Still a really cool card. Still no idea how much this one is worth. It is an evolution, so it is somewhat popular, and it is an error that isn't that prevalent. Like, I've only seen, I think, 2 other posts on Reddit of this card in particular, of the exact same error. No clue how much something like this would be worth, so... But still really glad that I have this in my collection. Moving it on, we have a really small part of my Charizard collection right here. I think there's actually only shiny Charizards. Actually, no, I was wrong. There is a rainbow one. But this one is the Japanese Charizard VMAX from Shiny Star V in a Gem Min 10. I think I resubmitted this once they, you know, redid their labels. And this used to be a 9.5, and then, you know, after they had redone their labels, all 9.5s were automatically considered 10s, because for the earlier labels that CGC had, 9.5s were actually their gem mints, and then 10 was a pristine. I actually don't know how exactly it went. It was kind of strange, but there we are, a CGC 10 Charizard VMAX, and I love that texture of this Japanese version. Look at that. If the light wouldn't glare, I could show it off a little bit more closely, but there we go. Very, very cool. Here is another one, another shiny Charizard, also from Shiny Star V, so both of them from the same set. But this one, this is actually one of the other 2 cards I sent in to grading for CGC. My very first cards that I graded myself, and got back as a pristine 10, still with the old label back in the day, and then I, you know, relabeled it, you know, reholder it, I think that's the right term, and has the cool looking pristine 10 right here, and it is a really cool card. And right here, this is the Rainbow Charizard GX. Now, this card is actually really cool. It is simplified Chinese, so it wasn't nearly as expensive as the Japanese version for this one, because I'm pretty sure the Japanese version of this card is a tournament price card or something of the sort, and it is ridiculously expensive, because it's super limited as well, if I recall correctly. So I do have the simplified Chinese version, which is, in terms of texture, identical to the Japanese one, and I think it looks super cool. And as I've said in multiple videos now, I do really love the Sun and Moon era texture for the English TCG. It's like my favorite texture they've ever done. I've actually seen a Reddit post a little while ago where someone posted a Hexmaniad card, and they were also appreciating how good the texture looked, but a few people have mentioned that apparently it was super expensive to make that texture, to print that texture, and it also had a lot of QC issues, so that's probably why they did away with them and tried to make it a little bit more flat, if that makes sense, you know, Sword and Shield era. But anyways, moving on, now this card is also really, really special to me, because first of all, this is my favorite tech team card ever made. I love this card so much, and this one right here is also really infamous for the competitive scene of the Pokemon TCG. Let me first mention a little bit more about the card. So I did buy this in a mail day, and it was really, really expensive at the time. I paid a lot of money for the raw version of the card, and then sent it into grading myself, and was lucky enough to get a pristine 10 on this one. That is super cool, and that texture as well. Look at this one. As much as I like the Sun and Moon era texture, that's something like the sun rays, I think they're supposed to be. That's something the English TCG just cannot replicate. So in the competitive TCG, this card was, well, quite frankly, it was broken. It was overpowered, because the Tag Team GX card right here, I know it's Japanese, so you can't read. If I recall correctly, once you use that card, all of your water type moves would do 30 more damage, but the most important part is, if you knocked out an opponent's Pokemon, you get one more prize card. So if you knocked out one of their tag team Pokemon, instead of getting 3 prize cards, you get 4. Which is absolutely ridiculous. That is so ridiculous, and which is why this card is super infamous in the competitive scene as well. Here I do have quite a few more tag team cards. This is the Reshiram and Zekrom GX, also featuring N in the back right there, kind of fitting with the recent release of Black Bolt and White Flare, and also, you know, the English release of those sets being right around the corner. So this one in a pristine can. This one I actually pulled myself, same as the card that I have coming up next right here. And, well, what much is there to say? I do love these tag team cards, and these actually used to be really, really cheap. I have no idea how much the double rare versions of these are nowadays. They have been picking up somewhat, especially the Lillie, but I feel like the Lillie variant picked up because, you know, Lillie was kind of being pushed somewhat. So this one I actually pulled from the only Dream League booster box that I ever opened on the channel, because, well, at the time I think I spent around 250 or 350 euros on that box. I opened that box as my 100 subscriber special. Just like I said earlier, that feels like eons ago at this point. As my 100 subscriber special, and I was lucky enough for this card to be my super rare, which is why this card is also super special to me. Not only is it a pristine 10, like it actually got an insanely good grade, I actually pulled this myself as part of like a special celebration, 100 subscribers, which is why I would never, ever in a million years sell this card, because I have special connection to the card, if that makes sense. Right, as I said, a few more tag team cards up right here. Here we have the Solgaleo and Lunala GX. This is only, quote-unquote, only a normal gem in 10. Would have loved to have this one in a pristine 10 as well, but funny story actually. So I bought this card raw, well, not this one, I bought the same card raw on eBay. No, actually not eBay, it was like some obscure card shop, and I think I used like a, whatchamacallit, a shipping agent to ship the card actually to me, but unfortunately, even though it was rank A, it had like a really small indentation right down here. I ended up grading it, and I think it got like an 8.5 or something like that, but I ended up actually cracking it out of the case, and then like years later, actually like 2 years later, ended up selling it. I actually wanted to resubmit it to like PSA, but never came around to it. So I ended up selling it and bought this one already graded in a CGC 10. So there we are. Funny story, I actually pulled the English version of this card as well in an opening. Still one of my favorite openings I've ever done, and really cool that I pulled this one. Here is the last Tag Team GX card, you know, just the double rare version of the card I just shown, Solgaleo and Lunala GX with Lillie in the background, of course. Still really cool illustration. Quote-unquote just a normal gem in 10. This is also one I pulled from my openings, because if you compare the number right here, the serial number, you can see they've all been submitted in the exact same, you know, grading pile, apart from this one. This is why the serial is a little bit different. But there we are, just a normal gem in 10. Still really happy about this one. Coming up next, I have a bunch of VSTAR Universe cards, and for the most part, I will be going by these fairly quickly, because at the time, I only included these to reach the bulk tier of 25 cards, so, you know, the price per card was a little bit cheaper with CGC. We have the Zacian V. Even though I go by these cards a little bit more quickly, I do appreciate every single one of them, because I think the artwork, especially for not just this one, the Zeraora VMAX that's coming up a little bit later, is super well done. I mean, this is off-centered. I can tell that just by looking at the card. This is off-centered, which is why it only got a normal 10, but it is Deoxys Gen 3 Pokemon, so I'm still really happy to have this one in my collection. If I didn't have this graded, I probably would have it in my secondary binder. Same as this one right here, the Zeraora VMAX. I just love this one. This card is such a mood. It looks like Zeraora's just waking up from like a long nap or something like this. I love this one. This is super well done. Very nice. Alright, and here is the last VSTAR universe card. Now this is actually pretty cool. Let me take this out of the sleeve, because this one is actually an error, which I didn't even realize when I first submitted it. I don't know if I can show this, but you can see right there, the texture is a little bit misaligned. So, as I said, it is a Gem Min 10 error, so technically error cards could get a 10. The Flareon didn't, but this one got misaligned texture, which is really cool. This is actually the first error card I ever owned. Once again, no idea what kind of value I should put on this error. First of all, it is a Zamazenta, which isn't very thought after, but then at the same time, texture errors for Japanese cards are so far and few in between, so maybe there is some collector out there who would be interested in this one, but it will remain in my collection for the foreseeable future, of course. And it looks like I've forgotten to show off one Charizard card a little bit earlier. So here we have the Charizard GX from GX Ultra Shiny. This card is actually super iconic, more on that a little bit later, but I actually bought this one in one of my, I think, very early mail days, actually. And it was already graded a 9.5 from like an obscure grading company that has, I think since been out of business, so they no longer grade anymore. I cracked it out of their case and resubmitted it to CGC. That was wishful thinking on my part though. I really hoped it would skate by and get just a 10, but realistically with that centering, a 9.5 is the highest it would ever get, which is kind of a shame because I really feel like centering is the only thing holding this card back. There's like no print lines, the edges and the corners look absolutely immaculate, and the centering is really the only thing holding this card back from being like a pristine 10, I feel like. Could you imagine this card in like a BGS Black Label? That would look kind of insane, right? But as I said, this is super iconic in English as well, because it's Charizard, first of all. Charizard is really popular, and it's shiny Charizard and that, which is the only Charizard I would like to collect at Shiny Charizard, because I think it's just super cool. Same goes for the Rayquaza and Primal Groudon and Kyogre. I just think they're super cool. There's just something about the different color scheme that really makes them pop. Maybe it's just like the black Pokemon like indicates they're cool. Maybe it's edgy. I don't know. I have no idea why I like them so much, but I think they're super cool. Alright, and coming up we have the last few remaining cards of Pokemon until we move on to the graded full art trainers, which there are a lot of, so strap in. But first of all, we have to show this one off. This is a Gardevoir EX from Cruel Traitor Japanese in a first edition, and this is super cool because this is literally my favorite Gardevoir artwork ever made. It's also illustrated by Mitsuhiro Arita, the myth, the man, the legend himself. So this is super well done, and especially with that Japanese texturing, this card looks absolutely insane, even though, you know, as I said a little bit earlier, goes for the X and Y era as well. The texture during that era was also really cool. Pretty much, I'm pretty sure it's the same as the Sun and Moon era, so there's not much difference. But I actually have this one in English, as you know, in my binder, and I always thought about maybe cracking this one out of the case and replacing that one, but then I would run into the issue of not knowing what to do with the English version that I have, because the condition of that one isn't good enough to send in for grading, because it would most likely only get an 8 or a 7 or something like that, so that's not really worth, which is why I think I've decided to keep this card. This is just one more issue because centering is holding this one back, as you can see. I feel like if it wasn't for the centering, this could easily be like a pristine 10. Simple as that. Still doesn't take away from the fact that this card is really cool, and I'm really glad to have this one in my collection. Alright, coming up next, it's actually 5 cards, so let me show these ones off all together, because these are the On The Ball promos right here. So 4 of these cards I've actually graded myself, mainly the Pikachu and the 3 Galar starters. The only one I didn't grade myself was the Eevee. Now this card, the Pikachu on the Ball promo, is actually really cool because this used to be the most expensive one out of all of these, until they did a rerun of this card, and I'm pretty sure this was rerun through Game in the UK. So funnily enough, I actually still have one sealed version of this, one sealed copy of this card, and you know, I graded the better one of the two, so luckily I was able to get a 10, especially or also on these 3, although I think the Sobble I actually bought twice on eBay, like non-graded, and decided to grade this one. I actually didn't expect this one to get a 10, but it did. But there we are, Grookey and Scorbunny, and this one is the one I didn't grade myself because I did actually have an Eevee on the ball that I sent into the submission as well, but that one got back as a 9. It was the only one that got a 9 out of the 5 cards submitted. So I just ended up selling that one and bought a PSA 10 of this one. The full set all together, which is really, really cool. Although one thing they messed up with, as you can see by the serials right here, unfortunately, I think what they did is they graded them like this, even though I didn't submit them like this. So even if the Eevee would have been a 10, and it would have been sequential, but not in the correct order, right? Because you can see right here, number 1, 2, so on and so forth. I'm still really happy that I have all 5 of these cards in a PSA 10, and I think they're super neat, especially the Pikachu one. Still have a sealed version of this one, which it's just lying in my cupboard somewhere. Alright, looks like I keep forgetting that I have more Charizard cards. Here we have a Charizard GX. This is just a promo from the Hidden Fates tins, which I've opened a lot of, but this one I bought already graded. I didn't grade this myself. I just bought this one because I think it looked neat. I actually really like the artwork. A rare Aki CG Works artwork that I actually like. So there we are. And next up, I also have 2 more artworks of the same card. I have the Umbreon Gold Star, one in Japanese from the 5th and 25th anniversary, and one from Celebrations in English. Both of them really, really cool, and both of them I'm really glad to have in my collection. I think I did this poll on my channel a little while ago. Which of these ones do you prefer? Do you prefer the Japanese or the English one? I would go with the Japanese version just because of that border, but I do realize this card looks maybe a little bit more iconic with the yellow border, although apparently the original version, you know, from the Pop Series 5 where this card is from, apparently the English version is like non-holographic, whereas the Japanese version of the original card is actually holographic. I think I actually recently saw an offer on the original version of the Umbreon Gold Star in Japanese, and it was graded a BGS 9.5, and he was asking, I think, $200,000 or euros, I can't remember, a really high price and absolutely ridiculous. I'm more than happy to have the reprints in my collection, of course, and especially with the English version. Let me just lay this one aside. The English version is actually really cool because before I even started my YouTube channel, I actually ended up buying an ultra premium collection of Celebrations for way more money than MSRP. Like, I really overpaid for that box. And it was actually kind of funny because I ordered an English one, but I received a German one, which at the time was worth a little bit more than the English one. No idea why, but I actually ended up, you know, contacting the seller, and he said, yeah, it was fine, it was a mistake on his part, I can keep it. So ended up opening it, and not only did I pull the Charizard, I also pulled an Umbreon, both in German. So I thought that was super cool, which is why, not just this card, because this is English, but that's why I kind of connect myself to this card in particular, because I just think back of opening that set, and it's just super cool. Pulling both of the chase cards from that set, my personal chase cards, in the same opening. That would have been one heck of an opening to record, I tell you. That was super cool. Alright, we're moving on to the full art trainer part of my collection, and I guess we're starting it off with the odd one out. The odd one out because this is the only BGS slab I actually own, and it is a Friends in Galar card, and this at the time was actually my favorite full art trainer card until Friends in Alola became readily available and super cheap with the release in the simplified Chinese TCG. Still a really awesome card, but look at the subgrades. The subgrade's actually horrible. Edge is 9, so it barely skated by as a 9.5. Still really happy about this one. You're gonna see throughout this video that I have a lot of versions of this card. I think like 4 in total. So there we are. Alright, and up next I actually have 2 cards right here. The Adaman and Irida, both from their 2nd anniversary Simplified Chinese gift box. I don't know why CGC specifies Diamond gift box and Pearl gift box. when they're literally included in the same one. But there we are. The Adaman is a 10, which is nice. The Irida is a 9. I'm still a little bit upset about that. But there we are. I do have both of these in Japanese, as you're going to see a little bit later on. But there we are with those two. And as I've mentioned, I do have multiple versions of the Friends in Galar card. I have a Japanese version in a Gemin 10, and I also have an English one in a Gemin 10. I think a little bit later on I also have the CGC Perfect 10, but I do like to, you know, split up my cards through language and then grading company. So for these next few ones, it's gonna be PSA until we move on to CGC, which is actually where most of my full art trainers are graded with. So we have the Guzma. This is the most recent one, together with the Acerola, and there's not really much to say. I think I talked about this extensively in my mail day. This is part of the 3-set promo that are really expensive in Japanese, but they were re-released in traditional Chinese in their second set, actually. This is the second after their so-called revival set called, I think All Stars it was called, and I'm really happy that they included in that set. Still feels kind of strange to me that they included cards that are so rare and thought after in Japanese. They just included them in a normal set, given it was kind of a revival set for the traditional Chinese TCG, but still, I mean, I'm happy about that. It means I don't have to spend thousands on these cards to get them in Japanese. And as I've just mentioned, here we are with the Acerola. This one is even more expensive than a Guzma if you were to buy it in a PSA 10. I've recently seen a price for the Acerola in Japanese. A raw version for this one apparently goes for around, I think, $11,000. So getting this one already graded in a PSA 10 for 500 feels like a steal, even though 500, of course, is a lot of money for a single card. But I'm really happy to finally have all three of them, so to speak, in my collection. And next up, I do have the two cards I mentioned earlier, the Irida and Adaman, both of them in Japanese and both of them in a PSA 10. So there we are. So that's why I'm not too upset about that result of the simplified Chinese versions of those two cards, because I have them in Japanese and really happy that I do have them. They look super cool next to each other. So the way I have this set up, I have like a really big presentation piece, and in the middle there's like the Friends in Hisui card. I have that one in a CGC Pristine 10, as you're going to see a little bit later on, and the presentation piece actually looks really cool. And now with all of these promos that I have in my collection now, it's going to be so cool to look at. Here we have the Sightseer. I actually teased this during last week's video when I opened the Storming Emergence Sylveon booster box. Wasn't able to pull this, unfortunately, but I said it as well, I do have it in a PSA 10 already, so technically if I had pulled it again, I would either send it to like a grading company, a different one, or just stuck it in a binder. But there we are. I also bought this one on Card Hobby, like with a lot of these simplified Chinese cards. I actually bought, I think 99% of them I bought on Card Hobby, and I actually got them for a really great price. So there we are, all featured in previous mail days, by the by, just like this one, the Cynthia right here. You know, I wasn't really sure about the Cynthia at first. I still strongly believe that the one from Hidden Legends is still my favorite Cynthia full art, but this one is a close second. I think this is pretty cool. Once again, simplified Chinese as compared to the Japanese version, which is really expensive. This one is also from, I'm pretty sure, Storming Emergence, if I remember correctly, because yeah, it's CSM 1C, so this is from the same Sylveon set that the Sightseer is from. So technically we could have pulled this one as well, but unfortunately we weren't lucky enough. Next up, I have this Misty's Favor right here. If you remember, I do have this one in English in my main binder, but just look at the texture, especially on the hearts. Like, the texture on the hearts looks so cool, right? I think you can see that on the recording. This is super nice. I think I got this for like an incredible price, actually. If I remember correctly, I paid like $80 for this one, already graded in a PSA 10. This is why I love the simplified Chinese TCG. Like the cards are so much cheaper compared to the Japanese or even English counterpart for that matter, because I'm pretty sure the English counterpart of that card is also pretty expensive nowadays. And next up we have the Sinnoh. I mean, you already know I had to get this card. Funny story, I actually wanted to get this card in English for the longest time, but I wasn't able to find a good copy, or more like I didn't want to spend as much money back then, which I think when I tried to get this it was around 80 euros in English, but never pulled the trigger, and I got some other cards for my Sun and Moon era part of my Full Art Trainer collection in my binder instead. But I then picked this one up because this one in English just kept shooting up, and I got this one in a PSA 10 I think for around $100 if I remember correctly. And I'm really happy that I do now because, well, it's Sinnoh, Gen 3 character, and also a really cool character. I mean, Lore Keeper. She's actually the only character in the entire Pokemon series that has the trainer class Lore Keeper. That's just some detail right there that I could think of at the top of my head. And as I mentioned, expensive cards in Japanese but affordable in Chinese. This Lillie card in particular, I mean, just look at the texture of this one. That one looks insane, and this is why I like that card. I have this in English, and I'm really glad that I did, because I think I bought it back in the day for like $250, but I already thought that was expensive and then just kept shooting up and shooting up. And this one was way cheaper than the English one, and don't even start with the Japanese one. The Japanese one is out of this world, just like another Lillie card that I'll be featuring a little bit later on. And this one, as I said, the texture looks insane. As much as I love the Sun and Moon texture, like, if it wasn't for the light, I could probably show it off, but it does glare somewhat, so I do give you that. If you look at the card in person, it looks absolutely insane. Not just the texture, but the colors as well. But since this one is from a gift box, I'm pretty sure it's still rather affordable. The gift box isn't. The gift box is overpriced. If you really want this card, just pick up the single on Card Hobby or wherever. Probably not eBay, because eBay tends to be overpriced with Chinese Pokemon cards. You're better off going for Card Hobby, although from what I've heard, registration seems to be a bit tough at the moment, because you need to provide some kind of ID, and I know that people are going to be pretty uncomfortable sending their ID over to like a random shop in China, so I used like an old student ID, which somehow worked, so I'm lucky on that note. But here is another Lillie card. This one I actually don't have in my full binder. So-called Lillie's Full Force. And this is just more of the same as the other Lillie card. The texture on this one looks insane. And I think I've mentioned it in my Storming Emergence opening. There's also the, what I like to call Sun Hat Lillie, you know, where she's wearing like a sun hat. I don't have this one, I don't have that one because I don't really like that artwork as much. So only have this one. And as we move on to the CGC graded Full Art Trainers, and as I alluded to earlier, this is my second most expensive card in my entire collection, and even though this is another card I will never sell, just because of how special that card is, because just think about it, the Japanese version of this one, you can't even buy that one, and even if you could, like even if it was available, you'd probably need to be a millionaire to afford it. I have no idea how much a Japanese pristine 10 of this card would be. Honestly, maybe just a blank check, you know, ask for anything you want and then see if it sells, kind of like in that vein. But this one, Simplified Chinese, way cheaper than this one. Still my second most expensive card, and you know, I don't really like talking about value as much, but I estimate this one to be around $1,500 to $2,000 easily. Because the raw version of this card is already $1,000. I've seen PSA 10 versions sell for $1,500, and the pristine 10 is more special, if that makes sense. Also, the story behind this card is kind of interesting, because I bought this card, I think in December 2 or 3 years ago, I think 2 years ago, as like a Christmas gift. I bought it from a random seller on eBay, although I say random seller, the seller was actually very supportive, really friendly, and throughout the whole process, very, very helpful. Like, I asked them for pictures and they provided so many pictures, and any questions I ever had, they answered. They shipped really quickly, and before I actually received this parcel, it was opened by German Customs. Now, I didn't get a notification or anything, unlike with my FedEx parcel a little while ago, but it was officially opened by German Customs because I saw the tape around the parcel, and I don't even know if they really looked at the card. I think they might have just opened the parcel and looked inside because the value was declared as $1,000, which is how much I paid. So I think that was just a little bit suspicious, like why would a parcel from China be so expensive? But, you know, they just kept moving. And then I sent it into grading and was super lucky enough to get a pristine 10 on this one. And this is one of my favorite cards in my collection, just because of how special this card is for full art trainer collectors, right? Because I'm pretty sure many full art trainer collectors consider this one the holy grail because of just how special it is in Japanese. Maybe not simplified Chinese, but you know, the artwork is the same, the texture is the same. So there we are, really happy to add this one to the collection, you know, together with the Guzma and the Acerola, as I've posted and alluded to in the last mail day. It's so cool to have all three of them together, even though they're not in Japanese, but that doesn't matter to me. In the same vein, here we have Lillie again, but this one featured with their friends, of course. This one is also one of my favorite. Like, as I've mentioned with the Friends in Galar cards, the Friends in Galar actually used to be my favorite full art trainer before this one became readily available with the simplified Chinese release. Of course, if you've seen my binder, you know that I have 18 copies of this card in my binder. And I also have, I think I have 2 graded versions. I know I gave one normal CGC 10 version away, but I'm pretty sure I have this pristine 10, and I also have a normal 10 somewhere in here. But the pristine 10 is really cool. I love this card. This is such a cool card. Man, I could look at this card for hours and not get tired of it just because of how cool it is. And it's also, once again, super special. This is like another card that many full art trainer collectors consider like the holy grail just because of how special it is. But there we are with the Friends in Alola, keeping the theme of Friends cards. Here's the card that I mentioned a little moment ago. Friends in Hisui, you know, next to the Adaman and Iridai, looks really cool in my presentation piece that I have. And this one actually I didn't grade this myself. I think I graded all of them, like the Friends in Sinnoh as well. And I think the Friends in Sinnoh got a pristine 10 and this one didn't. Or the other way around, I can't remember. But this is still a really cool card. Next up, we have this one, a card that I want to say I pulled recently, but the release of Stellar Miracle, just looking at the year right there, 2024, it's also like a year ago at this point, man. Really happy that I got a pristine 10, and, you know, having pulled this myself, graded it myself, and actually getting that pristine 10 is just super special, right? I don't know if you've ever done something similar to that, but that feeling is just so, but not just pulling the card, like pulling the card yourself. That feeling is already great, and then imagine grading it yourself and you get the highest grade the company offers. That is ridiculous, right? That is such a cool card. Then we go with a Lacey and a pristine 10. More pristine 10s coming up here. We have the Gardenia's Vigor, and this one also has like a cool backstory, because I bought this one from a seller on Card Hobby from France, and just like the seller for that Lillie card, he was so friendly throughout the whole process. Although I do have to mention, I never really had a bad experience with any seller on Card Market. Like, all of them are always super friendly, but no, he was especially friendly. He went above and beyond, like kept me posted on the status and everything, sent me so many pictures, and really made sure that the card arrived as safely as possible. And I ended up grading it, and it got that pristine 10, so there we are from Time Gazer. Another pristine 10 with the Mela. This is just the normal super rare, not the SAR, but I do have the SAR in my binder, so there we are, the normal one. This one I actually pulled myself from my Ancient Roar opening, so I'm really happy about this one. This one, I actually can't remember if I pulled this one myself or not. I think I might have bought this one, the Professor's Research featuring Professor Sana, because I remember buying a lot of SARs at one point from a seller on eBay, so I think this might have been one that I bought and not pulled myself. Still managed to get a pristine 10 on this one, so there we are. And here's one I also want to say I pulled more recently, but also 2024. Mask of Change. I pulled this from the Mask of Change special set, and that special set I bought off Mecha Japan. And usually with these special sets, because they're only held together with like a little bit of tape, it's really easy to like cut the tape or take the tape off, weigh the packs inside, and just, you know, fill the product with like dud packs. And I've had that happen to me in the past. So I was really surprised to pull a super rare from that product. Really surprised. And here is the Kieran. Of course, I have the SAR of Kieran in my binder. Here is another pristine, and I feel like I had way more. I think my order is a little bit messed up for this one. Here we have the Sharon from VSTAR Universe. I also don't know if I pulled this myself. I think I bought this one together with a lot of the other cards from VSTAR Universe that I added to the grading pile to reach that bulk tier. But Pristine 10, Sharon is a cool character, and the artwork is super well done, which is why I included this. This was not included just to, you know, fill the bulk. This was included because I really wanted to grade this card. That's why it was included. There we are with the Sharon. Yeah, okay, so it looks like I messed up my order a little bit right here, because I was meant to show this card off a little bit earlier. Here we have my second of only 2 Perfect 10, CGC Perfect 10s, and this one on a really special card. And there's also a really cool backstory to this card in particular, because I actually bought this card from a local Pokemon collector, actually. We met up through eBay Kleinanzeigen, which is kind of like, how would I put, what's the name of the English site? I can't remember. And bought this one card, met up in person with the guy, and bought this card off him, and actually ended up grading it, and it got back as a perfect 10. That's like kind of insane to me. I just basically traveled to like a, I don't want to say random town because it was a town nearby, but we met up in front of a cinema and just, you know, traded the card for the money, and I took it home with me in a sleeve. I think I bought a top loader. I'm pretty sure I bought a top loader, and it ended up grading a perfect 10. You're like, you can't make that stuff up. That is so insane, man. I really wish I kept in contact, but unfortunately, after the trade, I deleted his contact details of my eBay account because, you know, the trade is done. I gave him a good review and that's it. It's done. Really, I really wish I kept his contact information because I really wanted to let him know it graded a pristine 10. Although, maybe he would have been a little bit jealous, so maybe it's better that way. Here we have the other one, the Friends in Sinnoh. Also a pristine 10. Once again, I don't know if I bought this one and graded the other one, but still really cool. We have, of course, so many cool characters in this illustration right here. Favorite is probably the Cynthia. You know, Cynthia is my favorite champion. And also the Faulkner, because Faulkner is actually my favorite Sinnoh gym leader. So there we are. Really cool illustration. I really hope that they continue making these Friends cards. I would love to see like a Friends in Hoenn card. And here is another pristine 10 with the simplified Chinese Laser Sparkle. I do have the Japanese version, although my Japanese version of this card is only in a normal CGC 10. So that's a little bit unfortunate, but, you know, I do have the simplified Chinese version of this one now. Really cool. This one from 9 Colors Gathering. The Japanese version, of course, from Fusion Arts. And I think this is the last normal full art pristine 10 that I have. I do have a few more of the autographed cards, as you're going to see a little bit later. But here we have the Arwen Super Art Rare. I just think this is a super cool illustration because he is preparing a sandwich. Like, you can't beat that. You know, the longer I look at this card, the hungrier I get. So I think it's better if I take this card away really quickly. Alright, next up right here I have the Melanie from VSTAR Universe. Also kind of a funny story behind this one. I pulled this one while I was in Discord with a couple of friends. Very similar to the Bubble Mew I pulled a little while ago. So kind of special to me, even though it's only a normal 10. I really like this card, and, you know, as cool as this card is, I don't want to know what this is right here. So let's put that aside. Let's put that aside and never talk about it again. Here we have a Skylar V from Shiny Star V. This is also one of the cards that used to be a old CGC 9.5 that I then sent in for the relabel and the reholder. So there we are, still pretty cool card. Last time I checked, still rather affordable, surprisingly. It feels like Shiny Star V and, whatchamacallit. It feels like Shiny Star V and Shining Fates Like, the cards in those sets haven't really gone up much, at least the Skylar, and I know the Suicune Baby Shiny, well, quote-unquote Baby Shiny, that one was the most expensive Baby Shiny for a time in that set, but I feel like both of those cards haven't gone up much lately. I mean, last time I checked, the price on this one is still rather affordable. I have to recheck, but there we are with the Skylar. Next up right here is Arizu from Dark Phantasma. This is actually my second favorite character from Legends Arceus, second only to Adaman, of course. And she's just really cool because obviously she resembles Mars from the 4th generation games from Sinnoh, and Mars is also among some of my favorite characters from Gen 3. Probably probably in my top 10. So Arizu is also, and her character in-game is also pretty cool. So there we are. This one I actually bought off eBay as pretty sure as a Gem Min 10, although I might have also relabeled this one. But still really cool card. And here we have another VSTAR Universe card, this time around with the Cynthia's Ambition. And this one, like when they revealed this card, I immediately knew that I had to get this one. This one looks super cool. It's just Cynthia wandering around in some ancient ruins, and with the Gastrodon on her side. It's just such a cool illustration. It goes together super well and fits Cynthia's character as well. This is such a great illustration by the artist. Man, I'm still a little bit upset it's only a normal 10. I would have hoped for a pristine 10, of course, obviously, but I'm still really happy with a normal 10, of course. Next up right here, I have the normal R. When I do have the SAR in a pristine 10, which I'm happy about, so just the normal SR being a normal gem in 10, I'm fine by that. Like, that is fine with me. The SAR being a pristine 10 is way cooler anyways. You know, he's making a sandwich, obviously, that's why. Alright, next up we have the Furry Soda Girl. This is actually also a card I pulled myself on the channel. Really cool card, and I was really happy when I pulled it back in the day. Incandescent Arcana Pan from 2022. I could have sworn it was like last year that Incandescent Arcana was released, but no. And that set is also pretty cool. And I would have wished I could have opened more of it, but it was kind of expensive back in the day, especially after all the cards were announced. But still, really cool card, and I'm really glad that I have this one in my collection. Next up, we have another full art trainer card I actually pulled myself, the Candice from Paradigm Trigger. When this card was new, when Paradigm Trigger was newly released, this was actually the second most expensive card in the set. I don't know if it still is. I haven't really checked the prices for many of the Sword and Shield era Japanese cards. I just know most of them are pretty expensive. And speaking of expensive, that Lugia V alternate art, when the set was completely new, was so inflated in terms of price. I think it reached like over $1,000 before coming down. I think at one point this card was sitting at $300, and pulled it myself, never sold it of course, and graded it myself. A little bit upset it's only a gem in 10, but I can definitely tell you why, because it's a little bit off-center, and it also has, I think, 2 print lines. I can see one here and one here, but still really happy that I pulled this one myself. That was a really cool opening. Next up right here I have the Leon from Amazing Volt Tackle, also in Japanese. I do have the simplified Chinese rainbow version of this one, but this one is the normal one, just a normal gem in 10, and this one I actually bought off eBay a little while ago, but still pretty cool. Leon is such an iconic character, right, from the Sword and Shield era games. Literally from the Sword and Shield games, not just the era games, from the Sword and Shield games. And just super cool. I actually really like his character. I don't know if he has that many fans. I know Hop doesn't have a whole lot of fans, but I think Leon is a little bit more popular, so there we are with the Leon. Next up right here, I have Blue's Tactics, also in a Gem Min 10. This one being from Miracle Twin. I think for the longest time, I've always wanted to get the other 2 Gen 1 protagonists with red and green, but I never really pulled through, so I only have this one sitting here. I don't actually know. I think I bought this one. I don't think I graded this myself, because judging by the serial number, yeah, I don't think I graded this myself. So there we are though, still pretty cool card. Of course, blue from the Gen 1 era. And here we are with the Friends in Galar, this one being a simplified Chinese version of the card. As you can see right here from the 1st anniversary gift box, included together with the Friends in Alola card, of course. And what I really like about those 2 cards, they have this little stamp down here. I just thought this is super neat. Yeah, just one more version of the Friends in Galar card, as I said. I think I have in total like 4 different versions of this card, but it was my favorite full art trainer back in the day. But, you know, Friends in Alola released and everything changed. Here we have another Japanese card that I forgot to show off. A Lasar's Sparkle, this one from Fusion Arts, as I've mentioned a little bit earlier. And this one only being a normal Gem Mint 10, so I do have the simplified Chinese version in a pristine 10, so I'm really happy about this one. But this one I also bought, but this one I bought like a while ago. I think I opened one Fusion Arts booster box, and that was way before I even started like my YouTube channel, so way early on when I bought this one. Here we have the Karen's Conviction. This is a card that I bought of, I think I bought this raw of Card Hobby and then I graded it myself, and it actually ended up getting a normal 10. But this is pretty cool. I mean, it's Karen. Karen is also, I want to say, kind of iconic. She's also kind of like an older character, right? So she has been there from the very beginning. Almost from the very beginning. So there we are. Next up, just one more Friends in Alola card, and this one only being a normal Gem Mint 10. I think this might have been one of the first ones I graded, or no, actually I think the first one I graded, that one I actually sent off in a giveaway, and this one was included with the same one that actually ended up getting a pristine 10. So there we are, just one more version of this card, as if I didn't have enough of them already. And the last few remaining cards, I think you've seen these already, so I'm just gonna go by these a little bit more quickly, because these ones, as you can see, are the autographed trainer cards, but these ones are in simplified Chinese, because these were included in these little tin boxes right here. I had planned like a little presentation piece, I don't know if I still want to do it, where I had like the corresponding card, if I can find Hop in here. Hop is actually one that got a pristine 10, kind of funny, eh? So I have like the tin up here in like a presentation piece and the card down there, or the other way around, and I thought that might make for a cool presentation piece. Obviously I would have wanted to get every single one in at least a normal Gem Mint 10, but unfortunately, as you can see right here, Raihan and then Nessa back here both got a 9 for some reason. I have no idea why. And then the remaining ones are kind of split with like normal 10s, and then I also have Beat with a pristine 10. But there we are. Those are just, I think I also used, I mean, I really wanted to get all of these graded because of that presentation piece, but I think for the most part I also used this, you know, as a bulk, you know, to fill up the little grading tier and to reach that bulk tier and save a little bit of money on the grading. But there we are. That was all of my graded cards. There's no other graded cards that I have. There we go. I hope you did enjoy this video. I hope you didn't mind me too much waffling on about some of these cards, but I could literally spend hours on some of the stories of these cards, so I do have to actively stop myself from talking too much, otherwise we'd be here for hours sitting through the cards, looking at them one by one, everything. Every single one has a story to it, but that is the great thing about collecting Pokemon cards, at least for me personally. If you do have like a special connection or a special story with a certain card, I think that makes it priceless, right? And on that note, I think it's time to end this video. I hope you did enjoy this one. If you did, then a like would be greatly appreciated. If you didn't, then give it a dislike. Tell me in the comments below what you didn't like, so I can try to fix that for future videos. Other than that, right here is the video that YouTube thinks is best suited for you. Right here is the subscribe button. Click this one first, then click this video. Check out any of the other videos in the description below. And I hope we'll see you in the next one. Thank you so much for watching. Peace, take care.